And welcome back, everybody. Well, I should say welcome back to me. It has been a madhouse around here. A madhouse! A madhouse! That sort of stuff. Anyway, I've been playing, like everyone, Stardew Valley. Now, this game is quite simply an addiction simulator. It's in the same vein as all those other sort of farm build type games where you do have a farm to manage that crops grow over a certain amount of days, and it takes a lot of maintenance, both planting, growing, watering, all that kind of stuff. But it tends to go more towards the, say, Animal Crossing style of gameplay, where you do have a lot more else there to actually do, and it feels like there is a stronger sense of progression there, a progression both tied to this farm and elsewhere. You have obviously a large farm to uncover that has a variety of different crops to grow, each with their own growing times. You have a lot of animals as well, buildings you can build to house them, and each of those animals all have their own sort of products that come off them. Obviously cows, milk, chickens, eggs, all that kind of stuff, but it does get a bit further than that. Now, the bit I really enjoyed about the farming in this was there are actual seasons in the game. So during summer you were planting your summer crops, fall and all that kind of stuff. They each have their own individual stuff you can grow. Some crops are able to go over those seasons, maybe 1 or 2 seasons, but generally the majority will just be season bound. So you're thinking around that 30-day principle. What can grow? What can I finish before that time limit runs out? You know, starting your crops that will produce crops for the entire period at the start of the month, maybe. That kind of stuff. It just adds an extra element of gameplay there to think about, and you know, it makes it feel like the game is progressing more than it would otherwise. You're going through these seasons and your farm's building, but you're also seeing the world around you change, the crops are changing, all that kind of stuff. It's really kind of nice to see that both diversity in the gameplay and that sense of progression coming out in the farming aspects. There is a lot of other stuff you can do on your farm as well. You can kind of change around a lot of these crops and animal products into other things. You've got cheese machines, all that kind of stuff. You can make mayonnaise from your eggs. There's other ingredients like kegs to make beer and all that kind of stuff. So you can even convert it further. And all of that does make you more money in the long run. There's bee houses you can create, which obviously need their own little flower areas to produce more. You can make jam and all that kind of stuff. It's incredible just how much there is to muck around with. After going through a whole year and that kind of stuff, you do get used to it a lot more, but it's still, there's still enough there that you can keep growing your farm, and enough space there that you can keep moving out, spreading out over that land space. It will get to the time where you can only build so far, but then it's more about optimizing where to place things, where to move your farm around, where to put sprinklers, all that kind of stuff. And that's kind of interesting in its own way to play. Now, there is a lot more to the game there as well. There's a whole little fishing game that would be, I think, the bane of many people's existence. I tended to like it. I don't know why. I'm both a fishing nut in real life and in games. So, I don't know, just going to the ocean or river, throwing the rod out and just playing that mini game wasn't too bad. In the beginning with your first rod, it is quite hard to catch those fish, keeping them in that little glowing middle ground. But eventually, once you get the better rods and better equipment, it is reasonably easy. I even caught a few legendary fish, which is pretty cool. There is also I would say a dungeon area, both where you're getting your mining equipment, getting your resources like your ores and stones and that kind of stuff, but also where the combat is as well. The further you go down, the better materials you are going to find, but also the harder enemies you're going to get. So the combat is a pretty simple swing and miss kind of gameplay, but I don't know, it's just enough there for that mechanic. And I really like how you're tending to go down 5 floors at a time. Each 5 floors opens up the elevator so you can get back there next time as well. You don't have to go through all those levels each and every time. So it's nice to have that sort of saved process there. As with most things, both fishing and this mining combat, they do tend to kind of integrate into the crafting and the farm aspect as well. You'll use a lot of those ores in your farm to both build fences, build sprinklers, build a lot of the equipment there. You'll use the stuff you fish up sometimes to obviously make money off it, but also you tend to find a few things when you're fishing in both the treasure chest and elsewhere where, you know, you might find a brand new type of seed that you picked up out of the sea for some reason. I even found a good weapon that I was able to use in combat from the sea. So it's nice that all these little different elements are integrated together. Lastly is the whole community aspect of the game. And I don't know, I'm not much of a people person in these kind of things. These pixel people just don't do it for me. And while they did have the kind of notice me senpai look, it wasn't something I played around with too much. Now there is a lot there for those that do. Each of these people have their own interests and also their own schedules during the days. That does change based on both the weather and the season. So, you know, you get a judge of where they might be, but sometimes it changes up for you. They each have their own interests, so you can actually give them certain presents during the day, 2 a week from what I can recall. And that tends to build up that rapport with these people. And the more rapport you have, the better they'll treat you. And eventually, with a few of the single people in the town, maybe even let them move into your farm and marry them, that kind of stuff. There is a lot of, I know, really nice little community events to get involved with too. Little dances that go on where you can get rejected on your first go. And other little events to get involved with, like a fishing event. There was a nice farming event, all that kind of stuff, an egg hunt. It's just these little things that, while they aren't very important and you can avoid them if you want, they're just there to play around with, and they do come around with the seasons as well and special days. It's just nice to break up the monotony of the farm sometimes. Overall, it just feels like a game that really gets that sense of progression right with both the monotonous and the organization aspects of farming. I know, I like those Farmville Timer games. I like these kind of games. They're just the kind of game you can sit back and completely relax with, lose yourself in. Not necessarily thinking, but just enjoying that experience. It's just, I don't know, a very warm-hearted and relaxing thing to do in my mind. So yeah, check out Stardew Valley, like everybody else, and show me the pics of your farm. Thanks everybody.